Hello, this is Catherine at I Know I Need to Stop Talking. How are we all? Is everybody all right? It's a bit fucking bonkers at the minute, isn't it? I mean, you know, first we're staying in, then we're going out, then we're staying in and meeting up with 6 people, or not meeting up with 6 people, or only those 6 people, but absolutely not those 6 people, unless you're in Barnard Castle and are following your instincts ofs. But it's crazy times at the moment, isn't it? And so, first and foremost, I really just want to say I hope you're okay. I hope you're looking after yourselves. Be kind to you, be kind to those around you. I think there's lots and lots that we can't control about 2020. I mean, there's fucking shitloads we can't control about 2020, right? But the one thing we can all control is how we are with others. And I think kindness always is probably never more important than now. But kind to you as well. It is crazy, crazy times. It really is. And I suppose that kind of links into what I wanted to talk about this week, which is, I think one of the worst things about this pandemic, other than the fact that, you know, brand new virus that nobody knows what the fuck to do about and is stopping all of us from doing all the things that we love, apart from those little minor, teeny tiny details, I think one of the worst things about it has been the way that people are scared, right? And fear makes people react in lots of different ways. But I think one of the most common reactions that we've probably seen so far during the pandemic is just groups of people lashing out at other groups of people. And it's fueled by the media, who fucking love it when they can pit one group off against another group and start encouraging people who are more risk averse to have a go at people who like to take a bit more risk in their lives. And everybody will have different levels of risk tolerance and how they react in this situation. But I think one of the groups that have most been consistently bashed repeatedly over the head, and to be fair, it's not just during this pandemic, but it's been for as long as I can remember, is teachers. And teaching, something that I write about a lot on the blog, which always leads people to ask me, am I a teacher? Have I ever been a teacher? Anybody who's ever spent any time with me ever, most particularly my children during this recent period of home learning, will know that not only am I not, nor have I ever been a teacher, I would be an utterly fucking dreadful teacher. I really would. I have no patience or tolerance whatsoever. And I'm therefore in awe, in complete awe of all those who do have that level of patience and tolerance and who effectively devote their lives to teaching our kids and to doing work which, frankly, now more than ever, having had a little go of it for that period of time, that day when Jamie worked on his history project and managed 3 sentences in 7 hours, being just one example of many as to why probably teaching is really not well suited to me. So no, I'm not a teacher, no, I've never been a teacher, but I have a number of friends who do teach. I've also, I suppose, been surrounded by teachers for the vast majority of my life, and a lot of us will do, I suppose, if we have been to school ourselves and then perhaps gone on to have our own children. There aren't probably too many professions which we rub up against. Oh, that sounded a bit dodgy. No, if you're spending any time with teachers, you should definitely not rub up against them. But there aren't too many professions who probably touch on our lives in as many and as frequent ways as teaching does. And so I've kind of, you know, it's always been a lens that I feel that I've been privy to. But the other reason that I do write a lot about teaching and obviously do the Mrs. May parodies on the blog, because I just really fucking hate it when there's any group of people or profession out there which is consistently and completely unreasonably ground down by the media, by the backlash that they like to create. And I just think that there's loads and loads of people who are working really, really hard during this pandemic. Our amazing NHS, all of our key workers, loads of people going to work every day to make sure that our lights stay on and the internet works and food gets to our supermarkets. And thank you all so very much. But I can't think of too many other people who've worked their asses off during this pandemic and also been slagged off at the same time for not doing enough. And I do feel that teachers get a really shitty deal, and they have to teach fucking fronted adverbials as well. I doff my caps to all of you, I really do. So today's podcast, I just really wanted to kind of speak out, I suppose, in praise of teachers. And like any profession, yes, that you'll get some bloody awful teachers, as you do in any profession, but I firmly believe that those are the minority, and I do think that the vast majority of people out there working on the front line of education, and of course not just teachers, but, you know, head teachers, support staff, teaching assistants, office staff, receptionists, site managers. I always worry that I'm going to miss somebody when I do this, but anybody who works to, you know, support our children's education and make such a difference to their worlds, you're amazing people, and I thank you so much. So I thought when I was thinking about doing this podcast, I was like, well, actually, I'm going to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane and share with you, all of you, perhaps some of the teachers who certainly to my life and my children's lives have had a really huge impact in terms of the things that you've done for us. I've always quite liked school. I was quite lucky when I think back to when I first started school. And I think part of the reason that I first loved school, started loving school as much as I did and continued to love it ever since, was down to Mrs. Willoughby. And Mrs. Willoughby, to 5-year-old me, was like some kind of angel. I'm not exaggerating here. She had this cloud of golden hair. I can remember it really vividly. And she was the kindest, most softly spoken person ever. And I just fell head over heels in love. She, every single day, I couldn't wait to get to school to see Mrs. Willoughby. I couldn't wait to end to tell her about everything that I'd been doing. I was absolutely mad on cats at the time, like an obsession which was bordering on the unhealthy. It was slightly odd. I do sometimes wonder and worry at 6-year-old me. But I loved cats, and she'd listen to me banging on about cats for hours and how we were getting a kitten, and she'd let me bring in my soft toy. In fact, I seem to have a memory, which I will check with my mum, but I'm fairly sure this is true, that Mrs. Willoughby even once enabled me to bring in my kitten to assembly, obviously accompanied by my mum, as kind of like some kind of show and tell to the rest of my class. And Mrs. Willoughby, you rocked, and honestly, I think, when I think back to my time, this was at my very first school, although if I look at it without my rose-tinted glasses on, I can see that there were some ups and downs, as there are for most kids settling into a school environment. Mrs. Willoughby was just there, this incredibly calming, soothing presence, always happy to listen to me prattling on about bloody cats or whatever else had taken my fancy that day. And I think I couldn't have asked for anybody more kind, more caring, someone who would support me. And you know, she pushed me as well, because I was pretty academically capable when I first started primary school. And she would push me to sort of do little pieces of extension work and go and work in the library on projects from obviously a really very young age. And as I say, I'm sure it was having that foundation going into education which had an impact on how I felt about school and how much I loved it kind of for the years to follow. So that was Mrs. Willoughby, and then I moved school, and those of you who have read my first book, Absolutely Smashing It, will know that in the acknowledgements there is a particular shout out to my beyond brilliant Year 5 teacher, Mrs. Stone. Mrs. Stone was and is a legend, and I'm so privileged to be back in touch with her again now, and I'll explain to you how that came about. But she taught me in Year 5. She was ever so slightly terrifying. I mean that in a very good way, Mrs. Stone, if you're listening to this now. But she was definitely very no-nonsense. There was kind of no messing around in Mrs. Stone's classes. You focused and you got on with it. But for me, I think probably more than anybody else who taught me over the years, what Mrs. Stone brought out in me was just this huge love for writing. And I'd been lucky to have a number of very good teachers over the years who'd encouraged me to write and had seen that creative writing was something I was into. Mrs. Stone was the first person to turn around to me and say, you know, Catherine, you should really think about writing a book one day. And I think up until that point, I kind of thought that books were things that were written by other people, by proper authors. To be fair, even now, I still feel a little bit like that there are these proper authors, and there's people like me dicking around writing books with lots of different words for front bottoms in. But Mrs. Stone was the first person to, I think, make me believe that maybe this was something that kind of was even a vague option. She also taught me to write funny. She was the first person to properly teach me the power of comedy in writing. And actually I can still remember that, she was the very first person to introduce me to this whole genre of satire. I can remember quite vividly a homework assignment she set for us as a class, and we had to effectively take one of the well-known fairy tales out there. So I think from memory, I think I picked The Three Little Pigs, and we had to kind of give it a bit of a modern uptelling. So I think from memory, in my Three Little Pigs, there was some dodgy estate agent business going on, and shoddy workmanship in terms of these houses of straw, which really weren't fit for purpose, houses of sticks. Of course, everybody knows you build your house with bricks if you want it to last, and your home insurance premiums are going to be through the roof if you don't. So she really taught me the power of funny, I suppose, and how to start to craft those words. Things like, you know, where should your punchline form in sentences. And I probably learned a load of writing techniques back then that I've used ever since. But she was a joy. She was an inspiration, and one of the definitely one of the moments that I look back with most happiness in life, is because quite often we have these teachers and they're in our lives for a period of time, and they come into our lives and go back out of our lives. And I suppose the same must be true for all of you who are teachers. You have children come into your lives and go back out. But about, I don't know, it must be about 6 years ago maybe, I was just on the internet one evening and I thought, oh, one day I'm going to look up my old school, because I'm quite nosy. I like to look at pictures, see if it looks the same as when I was there. And I clicked through to the staff list and I happened to see that Mrs. Stone was still there at the self-same primary school that I'd been at, and she was now headmistress. And I'm a big believer in fate, and I was like, my God, this is it. This is this moment. I thought I was like on This Is Your Life or something. I was like, I must write to Mrs. Stone. I must write to her and tell her what she meant to me, because genuinely she did. And I don't think we often get a chance to perhaps go back to some of those people who made a big impact in our early years and tell them what they meant. So I wrote an email. Like everything else I've ever done in life, it was pretty verbose, could have done with a decent edit, but I went through it, spell checked it obviously quickly, because clearly you don't want to send a misspelled email to your English teacher of years ago. Also then had that like moment of panic where you're like, I call you Mrs. Stone, but we're grown-ups now, but I can't call you by your first name. That would be terrible. I could never call you by your first name. That's like, there's like an unwritten law, right? Once you've called a teacher Mrs. whoever, you can't go back and call them by their first names. It's like calling your parents by their first names. It's very hard to get your head around. Anyway, I called her Mrs. Stone just to be on the safe side. Didn't want to get into trouble. And I sent off that email. And if I'm honest, I probably didn't expect to hear back. But within the next few days, I had the most beautiful email back. Firstly, actually, from the school secretary, who had taken receipt of the email, thanked me so much for sending it, said she thought it was absolutely lovely that she'd forwarded it on to Mrs. Stone. And then I had an email back from Mrs. Stone herself, and it was so, so lovely. It was like the years kind of fell away, because I have such good memories of my time at that school. Anyway, we kind of exchanged a couple of emails and sort of updated each other on our lives. And then a few weeks later, I had another email from her, and she said to me that she was actually retiring at the end of that academic year. And sometimes life is so weird, because just think, if I'd left that another year and hadn't got in touch with her, we might never have got back in contact. Sometimes life is crazy. And she said that as it was her last sort of year, she was selecting who was going to come in. From every year, they kind of invited an old girl in to do a little kind of leaving speech to the year sixes who were leaving from school. And she asked me if I would like to come along, and make the speech as the old girl on the final assembly of her teaching career, which was just such an honour to be asked. So obviously I said yes. And I went along, and for anybody who's ever gone back to your old schools, particularly old primary schools, it is like the years fall away when you step inside. And I kind of went in and I waited in the office, and she came in, and she gave me a massive hug, and she was just exactly as I had remembered her. And we went over to the hall where the presentations were taking place, and I think the last time that I'd stood on the stage in that hall would be when I had been in year 6, and we had been performing HMS Pinafore, and I had been playing Sir Joseph Porter KCB. So I got to start my speech by telling all the kids in the audience that basically the last time I'd been in that hall on that stage, I'd been dressed up as a man. Being back in touch with her has been such a privilege. I do think the timing is weird. Like I say, if I'd left it a few more months, she would have left and we probably wouldn't have got back in contact. I know we're in contact on Facebook, she follows the blog, and it is such a privilege to have somebody back in my life who made truly such a huge difference to it. So then I left primary school and I moved on to secondary school and had lots of great teachers there. And there's a load of them that stick in my mind for various different things. But I think for me, the teachers that made the biggest difference to me as I went through secondary school weren't necessarily those who pushed me on the academic side, although I'm hugely grateful for that. But the thing that changed for me most going from primary to secondary school, because believe it or not, I was once very shy. I appreciate this is very hard to believe for anybody who's ever known me past the age of 16 or so, but I was very shy when I went from primary school to secondary school. And I think the staff who certainly made the biggest difference to me in secondary school were those who really encouraged me to build up that confidence. I remember a particular history teacher that I had at that time, and she clearly, I was capable academically, she knew I was capable academically. But where she pushed me was not on the essays or, necessarily the assignments. It was actually on doing the stuff that I found really hard. I can remember her saying to me, Catherine, you need to try and speak out more in class. You need to try and put your hand up more in class. And I can still remember sitting in that first class after she'd said it and feeling absolutely terrified and thinking, oh my goodness, it felt like a mountain to climb. But of course, then I did it once and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And then I did it a few more times. And then probably by the end of my time there, she wished she'd never fucking mentioned me speaking out because I never shut up. So she probably looked back on that period of time going, if I had my time again, I'd probably tell her to sit down quietly and stop making a noise. But she was amazing for building my confidence. And I think she had a little bit of a soft spot for me because one of my favourite school memories from my secondary school, it was quite a strict school. It was an all-girls school. It was quite strict. And we had that weird period of time which you get in year 11, which is you're about to finish school proper, but you've still got your exams on the horizon to come. And I can remember my last normal in inverted commas, day in school before we all went off on study leave. And I was hanging out with my mates. And I don't know why, but there was a traffic cone, like one of those orange and white traffic cones, sort of in the driveway coming up to school. And again, there's no logic to this. It's probably one of those things that seemed hilarious at the time as a 16-year-old. I picked it up and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And this particular teacher, my history teacher, saw me carrying it and sort of said, Catherine, what are you doing with this? What are you doing with a traffic cone, you stupid child? And I was like, I don't know, I just found it. It's really cool, isn't it? And then for whatever reason, and as I say, I can't describe how out of character this was for the school, she said to me, oh, it's your last day today, isn't it? I said, yeah. She said, why don't you take that with you to lessons today? And I sort of looked at her like she'd taken leave of her senses. And I said, what, really? She went, yeah, no, take it to your lessons today. And I went, oh, come on, I'm not going to be allowed to do that, school. They don't typically encourage you to wander around with the traffic cones. And she went, no, that's all right. I'm going to write you a note. And I wish I'd kept it, because she just wrote me the most brilliant note, which said to all staff members, should you see Catherine coming around the school today with a traffic cone, please note that I have personally asked her to take this with her to all lessons and ensure that it is not confiscated. It needs to be returned to me at the end of the day. And she gave me this note, and I walked around with this note all day, and it was just a wonderful moment walking into classrooms and seeing these teachers looking at me like, have you taken leave of your senses? I'm like, no, I have a note. I am required to carry this traffic cone around all day. She was an absolute legend, and I left that school with a level of confidence that I don't think I would have ever found had it not been for people like her just pushing me out of my confidence zone to try and do something amazing. And then that kind of, I suppose, leads me on to the journey my children have been through in their school career so far, and actually going back before they started school. They both went to nursery from the age of 6 months. I went back to work 4 days a week when both of them were 6 months, primarily for my sanity. But actually it turned out to be a really great move for them as well. They both thrived in nursery, and I know that not all children do, but they were lucky to go to really great nurseries, and their social skills and abilities absolutely soared off the back of it, to the point that I managed to convince myself that, when they went to school, they'd have no problems at all because they'd been to nursery since they were tiny. We'll come back to how pride comes before a fall on that front very shortly. But they had the most amazing nursery with just the most wonderful staff, and I think one in particular who I would call out was Kerry, who looked after both children since they were a baby. In fact, she was one of the first people to hold Beth when I think Beth was about a day and a bit old. But Kerry was omnipresent really in my children's lives from when Jamie was 6 months. She watched them both grow up. And I think that good teachers and good childcarers, they transcend slightly. They don't just become, somebody who looks after them when they're at school. They become someone who sits almost at the centre of your children's world. And that was definitely true with Kerry. She properly became part of the family. to the point that when Beth managed to give herself an inexplicable injury, which it took a very long time to work out that how she managed to get this massive graze all down her thigh was she'd been messing around on a tree trunk that she'd been told not to go anywhere near, which makes sense now Beth's older, because I just think, yep, Beth, that's exactly the kind of thing she would do. That actually, when that happened and I had to get her to hospital very quickly, the first person on my phone wasn't a family member or wasn't even, you know, sort of one of my girlfriends. It was Kerry, and I just said, this has happened, what shall I do? And she was there within minutes and looked after Jamie while I took Beth to hospital. And as I say, she just became a real central part of our family life. And even now, my children still chat about the memories they have. I think Jamie likes to suppress some of those memories, such as the time that he had chicken pox. And he had just recovered from chickenpox, everything had scabbed over, he was going back to nursery, and he proudly walked into nursery to announce very loudly to Kerry and anybody else in the surrounding vicinity that I have a big spot on my willy. Teachers, you must get so much information that you wish your children had not shared with you, but I'm sure that's one of the most joyous parts of the job, certainly would be for me, the comedy moments. So as I say, I had convinced myself that because my children had had such great experiences at nursery and they'd been there since they were tiny, starting school was going to be a breeze. That's what I told myself. So let me take you back to Jamie's first day at school back in, I don't know, a long time ago, 2012 I think he started school. And we walked to school on the first day, returning to the house at least once to forget items that we had forgotten because standard teeth, hair, shoes. And we walked down to school and we walked outside the gates, and there were lots of parents waiting with their children. And I think it's probably fair to say that parents typically fall into one of two camps when their children start school. It's either oh my babies, oh my goodness, this is breaking my heart, how will I be without you? I don't mean to sound dismissive, that's a very valid point of view, but there are those who are very emotionally impacted by their children starting school. And there are those parents, like me, who cannot wait to turn 180 and run in the opposite direction and be so grateful that somebody else is taking over looking after your child for the day. That was definitely me. So we were chatting outside the school gates, and I did that thing that you should just never do, which is oh, well, you know, I'm expecting Jamie to be absolutely fine because he's been in nursery since he was 6 months old, so I'm sure he'll have no problems leaving me whatsoever. Oh, how those words came back to bite me. So he queued up, and the doors opened, and his lovely Year R teacher stepped out, who he'd met previously. She'd come and done a home visit, and the head teacher was there as well. And I turned to Jamie and I said, go on then, Jamie, off you go. I'll see you later. Bye-bye. All the stuff you're told to do, right? You leave them confidently. You don't get emotional over it. You encourage them to walk in and off you go. And he gave me a kiss and he said, bye-bye, mummy. And he went in. And I thought, brilliant. That's it. I've done it. I've smashed it. And I was there with my kind of like my little victory lap around the playground, running off home. And then suddenly from behind me, from the classroom where I just dropped him off, came the most unearthly noise. And my first thought was, oh dear, somebody else's child isn't going in very well. Well, isn't it good that, you know, my child was so well behaved? No, my child was not well behaved, because the unearthly noise was, it turned out, coming from Jamie, who had gone into the classroom very well behaved. But back to that pride before a fall moment. At nursery, while I dropped him off every single morning for the last however many years, there was a window in the front of the building, which when I said goodbye to him and kissed him, he would run to the window with Beth. They would both run to the window together. It was very sweet. They would run to the window and they would wave out the window to me as I reversed the car out and set off to work. So that had worked really well. So I was always like, okay, bye, I'll wave to you at the window. Jamie, therefore, had gone into school assuming that once he got into the classroom, there would be a window from which he could wave to his mother. Spoiler alert, there was no window. And thus it was that as I turned to make my way out of the playground, from behind me I heard this, "Mummy!" And Jamie, absolutely histrionic, tried to make a break for it, was blocked by the very alert and observant head teacher, so he bolted through her legs, through the crowds of other parents, and clung to my legs, sobbing and screaming, to be watched by every single other parent in the playground, all of whom had just heard me going, oh yeah, Jamie will be fine, he's going to have no problem at all going in. Yeah, that one didn't work out quite so well. But he's, the teachers, again, at that moment in time, and I remember then at that point, despite my, I'm going to be fine, I'm not going to be upset, there's something awful about your child sobbing and clinging to your legs, going, don't leave me, please don't leave me, mummy. And his teacher and the head teacher were just kindness personified. They took him, they promised him that he'd play with any number of toys that he wanted to. They made me as a parent feel confident that, you know what, this is normal. I mean, maybe not this level of drama normal, but this is normal, kids will be upset. And I got back and I picked him up later and he was absolutely fine. And that was testimony to the expert way, I think, that his teacher had just handled that situation. It made something that could have been very traumatic really quite straightforward and easy to deal with, albeit I still struggled to make eye contact with those parents in the playground for about the next half a term. They were like thinking, yeah, she's the one who said that her son was going to go in, no problems. Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. But Jamie then went on to really thrive in the school that he was in for primary school, in which Beth is still at now, and it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful school. And I think the thing that has struck me most throughout his time there is every single member of staff has cared so much about the children that they look after. He's had various different teachers, some of which he's got on with better than others because he's a boy who wants to mess about with his mates, and some teachers are frankly more tolerant of that than others, and who can blame them? There's one particular teacher though who, for Jamie at least, I think really quite transformed his time at that school. And it was quite interesting because she worked part-time in a number of his classes throughout Key Stage 2. And I think, Jamie's school is very academic. It's, it wants to push the children to achieve. But I think what she recognised was that actually boys don't necessarily always learn in the same way as girls, and therefore it was actually that there were other things that she could encourage Jamie to be doing, things that he was going to really enjoy doing, things that was going to make him forget that this was some kind of structured learning activity, and that was actually going to make him really enjoy what he was doing and therefore want to engage with it. Because I think quite often the way that the curriculum is laid out, and let's not start on the Department for Education, we could be here for weeks and weeks, but I think that the way that often the curriculum is laid out, it favours kids who are typical academic learners, more traditionally girls, and it can really turn off other kids from learning and wanting to learn. And I think that what this particular teacher did was she really got Jamie wanting to engage and wanting to learn. And Jamie, who, if you ask him opinions on anything relating to school, it was fine, it was fine, it was fine, it was fine. That's kind of the constant refrain. Actually came out of school on days when he had her, or going into school actually, the days when he had her, and was be like, oh yes, I've got such and such teacher today. Really looked forward to having her there, there to engage with him and to make a difference to his learning. And there's a really nice ending to that story, which is when he was finishing in year 6. The school had sports day, and none of this non-competitive, everyone's a winner sports day, which I personally disapprove of, because I just think you have to learn lessons in life that you're not going to win all of the time, and sometimes it's really irritating, but that's the way life goes. Anyway, the school have a proper old-fashioned traditional sports day. Jamie was always all right about doing sports and quite liked running, but loathed and detested being the centre of attention, so the thought of having to run in front of all the parents was not exactly appealing. And he was kind of an age where he was kind of getting vaguely interested in girls and messing about with his mates, and the thought of entering himself in sports and putting himself forward for things just really didn't appeal. And this particular teacher said to him, oh, Jamie, you should have a go at running the 800 metres. And he was like, oh, no, it's all right. And she was like, no. And very nicely, she kind of kept pushing him, saying, no, I think you should do it. And he sort of came back home and he said to me, oh, I'll go and do the 800 metres. I said, oh, that's good. And he said, yeah, but I'm not sure I'll be very good. And I said, well, good to try these things. And he said, oh, yeah, but this teacher, she thinks I can do a really good job. And I said, well, there you go. Anyway, long story short, it got to sports day. It got to the afternoon and the 800 metres race. And Jamie, the kid who thought he wouldn't even be able to run 800 metres, not only ran 800 metres, he annihilated the opposition and he came in second behind the fastest kid in the year. And winning's not everything, it really isn't, and that's not the point of the story. But I think the point of the story was he came off the field and he absolutely beamed from ear to ear, because that teacher, what she'd done is she'd made him believe in his ability. She'd made him believe that he could do it. He would have dismissed it. He would have said, oh, no, 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 because that fear of failing was too great. And she pushed him. And that expression, when he realised that actually he could do this, honestly, I wish I could have bottled it. It was a proper tears in your eyes, wonderful, wonderful moment. And I'm so grateful to everything that she did for him, because she really did transform school for Jamie, I think. And then there's Beth, who is a little bit like me, really. She's always liked school. She's naturally very bright anyway. But what the school have done brilliantly is they've just really encouraged her with her sports, which when you think of everything else that the teachers have to do, and the daily changes to the curriculum, and the fact that, I don't know, the kids are all going to learn in Sanskrit or instead of English, or whatever the hell the DFE have decided we're doing this particular week. But in a small school, the staff have gone above and beyond to encourage Beth with her sports. And probably the most notable examples of those came last year when, again, pride comes before a fall. I kind of naively assumed that we were in this rhythm now of getting people to school, and it was a bit crazy. I was working full time, the kids were in school, but it was kind of everybody knew what they were doing, and our daily life and rhythm worked just fine. And then Jamie went off to secondary school, which actually was a really smooth transition for him. But Beth, who's usually the most confident person you can imagine, she just wobbled because all of a sudden school didn't have her big brother in it, and it probably hit her in a way that I don't think that I'd properly prepared for. And so she was going to school every day, but she wasn't coming out looking happy, and she'd started to wobble in the mornings and tell me that she didn't want to go to school, which was so unlike her. And then one of the teaching assistants, who knew Beth fairly well, because I think she'd spent time with her previously, came out one morning when I dropped her off to come and speak to me, and obviously we want to check that everything's okay and your child is not causing teachers any problems, because goodness knows my children are both prone to doing so. And she came out to speak to me, and effectively what she had arranged to do and offered to do was, because she'd seen that Beth was good at her sports and particularly good at football, had arranged for Beth to join some of the senior classes in playing in their netball team and playing with the year 5 and 6 boys football team. And oh my goodness, such a little thing, but that clever observation of seeing Beth and seeing that Beth was struggling and knowing what mattered to Beth and what would make a difference to Beth, I cannot tell you how much that changed Beth and how much that made a difference to her going into school every day. Suddenly she went from, I don't like school, I don't want to go to school, to running through the gates every morning without even looking back. And that was thanks to that teaching assistant just spotting that one of the children in her care wasn't 100%, knowing what made that child tick, and then going out of her way to go and ask, because this wasn't the normal regulations, to ask if she could participate in some of the senior teams. Honestly, there aren't words enough to say thank you to someone who does something like that for your child, who makes that difference. And similarly, she had a sports coach came into her school last year, and it was thanks to that sports coach who watched Beth play football, who was instrumental in then coming and saying to me, you should get her to some of the trials for the girls' teams, football teams in the local area, which hadn't even occurred to me. He was happy for me to provide his name, got me in touch with the right person. Long story short, she went to trial mid-season because she'd missed the trials proper, and signed to that team and has played for that team since. Again, that would never have happened if he hadn't gone out of his way to speak up and say, actually, this is something that I think she could be good at, I think she could do. He gave me all of his time, all of his advice. Moments like that are so appreciated, and it's those little moments, the difference that you make, teachers, to our children's lives. I don't have words enough to really to say thank you. And I think during lockdown that was definitely brought home to me, and I know that not every school has been like this. I do know that not every teacher out there is amazing, and I fully appreciate that, but it's such a tiny minority. The vast majority will just go above and beyond to do the right thing by the children they look after. I think I posted on the blog at the time the way, a few weeks into lockdown, the teachers at Beth's school did a video montage, and I know a few schools did this, but just the teachers with their pets, smiling, looking happy, holding up messages to the kids saying how much they've missed them. I mean, I was in bits. I had to go and lie on the floor and sob, full body sobs. Oh God. Those little moments, Beth's teacher phoning her up in lockdown to check she was okay, asking her how her football practice was doing, how many keepy uppies was she up to now, because she'd said that she was doing her keepy uppies. You guys change lives. You genuinely change lives. And you change lives for low wages, long hours, constantly moving goalposts. You're not the only profession that does that. There are a number of professions out there which do exactly that, but there are very few which are as battered and maligned as the teaching profession. So I really just want to say a massive fucking thank you to everybody who works now or has ever worked on the front line of education. You are amazing. You transform lives, and I genuinely do not know where I or my children would be without all of you. Thank you so, so much. So that is my podcast in praise of teachers and you know, obviously the way they transform lives. Also for the occasional moments where I just don't know how they keep a straight face. And one of my all-time favourite moments was when there was a little incident at Jamie's school a few years ago, and his teacher had to come and speak to me, and I said, "Is everything all right?" And she explained that she was having to speak to a few of the parents of boys in the class. And I said, "Oh goodness, why? What's happened?" Because they were walking around the playground very loudly orating songs and phrases, shouting about vaginas as big as a fridge. And seriously, any teacher who can say that phrase without wetting themselves laughing, fair play to you. Fair play to you. So stay safe, look after yourselves. It is a crazy time. I will continue to post these weekly podcasts. Thank you so much to all of you who fed back and shared thoughts and comments. It's so appreciated. Look after yourselves, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others around you, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Bye bye.